Hey guys, Carlo Filippone here, your muscle chef, ready to talk to you about this guy, the chicken pound. What do we do with the chicken pound? We prepare grilled chicken in different flavors, 6 to be exact. If you're serious about bodybuilding and you meal prep, don't go anywhere else. This is the company for you.
RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as #AskDave, brought to you by Species Nutrition, Titan Medical, the Chicken Pound, and then, of course, our Arnold Classic sponsors, Chemical Warfare. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation. Of course, the Arnold Classic, 4 weeks away, so now you're going to start to get all the progress pictures. Dave broke down Patrick Moore. I forget who else, Dave. You had another somebody else last week. We'll get to that in a bit. But next week is when we start the ball really rolling on our coverage. We're going to have our interviews, our Iron Debate segments, preview segments, anything and everything having to do with the Arnold Classic. We're going to be going full bore starting next week as we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, we wanted to give a couple of special shout outs to 2 retailers carrying Species Nutrition. One, Total Nutrition and Syosset. For those in the Long Island area, those familiar with Bev's Gym, Total Nutrition is right next door. They have this week a special going on all week long. If you buy a Species Nutrition product, you get a Species Shaker Cup for free. And then tomorrow, starting at 5 p.m., I believe going to about 8 p.m., there's going to be a sampling. Don Mutasio, a good friend of the show, he's going to be there. I'm going to be there. You get to taste Protolize, I believe Isolize as well. And then, Dave, a new retailer jumped on board this week from San Antonio, Texas, Strong Supplements and Nutrition.
Yeah, just a good friend of mine, Louis Mangione. He, I've known him for years, and they opened this nutrition store. And he called me up. He's like, "Dave, I got to carry your products." We sent them over there to him, and the display is awesome. I mean, it's a beautiful store. San Antonio is a stronghold for hardcore bodybuilding there, and I think that they know the line and they're going to push it really well. And I want to thank him for carrying it. If you guys are in that area and you need supplements, don't hesitate to stop in there. They're very knowledgeable in there. They carry the best stuff, and the prices will be awesome. I guarantee it. So, we can't thank our retailers enough for supporting the brand. Nowadays a lot of stuff is sold online, but it's the brick and mortar guys that get the first time customers in there, because people don't know about supplements. They go into the stores, young kids or teenagers, or older people, or just people who want to just try to get in shape, and they go in there and they get information from stores like this, and they're being taught on what the good products are, what the crappy products are, the difference between high quality whey isolates versus whey concentrates and stuff like that. And if it wasn't stores like that teaching the younger generation and people who don't know, then companies like ours wouldn't be able to sell the products that we do. So we have to support the retailers for sure.
It was Akeem Williams. That was the other bodybuilder who sent you progress pictures, Dwayne McDaniel out of Diamond Gym, New Jersey. So Akeem Williams and Patrick Moore, those are the 2 that Dave has broken down so far. And as we get more progress pictures over the next few weeks, Dave will surely break them down.
I got some great ones, by the way. I haven't put them up yet, but from Sergio Oliva Jr. Wow, he's in great shape already, man. Wait till you guys see him. He's going to be a surprise.
No. This has been actually one of the funnest things, I think, of the Arnold prep. Not just Chris Cormier has been training Sergio Oliva. So
they're living together, Sid. They're in the same house.
It's crazy because you've seen, obviously, Sergio's progress, Dave, but Chris Cormier is re-energized at a whole new level. Really fun to see out of the legend.
Well, Chris Aceto does Sergio's diet, but Chris Cormier is working with Sergio on posing and presentation. And when Chris moves into your house, you better be ready to post 2-3 times a day. I'm telling you, there's no rest for the weary when Chris is there. So I know he's going to keep an eye on Sergio, so there won't be any cheating on the diet. So I think this is a good move on Sergio's part to bring him into the equation.
Obviously, a lot of excitement heading into this 2020 Arnold Classic. Let's go to the questions. The first 2 questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. The first question, Dave, after my full clean out and detox this year, when I resume my cycle, should I start at a lower dose than 1,000 mg test and gradually work up as I stop progressing?
You know, people ask me that all the time. And back in the day when we first started doing anabolic steroids, you know, we would always pyramid up. We would start lower and build up. But you know what the truth is? When you're using long-acting esters, they take 2-3 weeks to get in your system anyway. So you might as well start out with what you want, because if you're taking 250 milligrams, let's say every other day, you know, that stuff's not getting in your system and building up and starting to actually release the testosterone for 2-3 weeks anyway. You know, ask anyone who's never done a cycle. It takes at least 3 weeks to feel the steroids. I mean, when you take your first shot, the next day, probably the same day, you probably think you're stronger, but that's placebo effect. But it really does. It takes about 3 weeks for you to start feeling anything. So you might as well get the stuff built up in your system. So I don't really see it as necessary to build up. Now, if you're a beginner and you're first starting and you're only going to be using 250 or 500 milligrams a week, then that's fine. But if you're a guy who's doing 1,000 milligrams of test a week, just start out with it. There's no reason to pyramid up.
Second question, again from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Dave, how much should I increase my calories when I go from being clean to starting my cycle again? What form of calories do you normally increase?
To be honest with you, I don't change calories, and I tell this to people all the time. I get a lot of natural guys who come to work with me, and they're like, how will my diet change from, or if they are natural to trying to take gear, how has it changed? The diet and supplements are exactly the same whether you're on gear or you're not on gear. When you go on gear, things just work better. You're able to absorb more protein. Because your level and rate of protein synthesis is higher. But your requirements are the same. Whether you're on steroids or not, you still have the same protein requirements, the same fatty acid requirements, probably the same carbohydrate requirements. Now, as you get bigger, okay, when you're trying to grow, you'll need more food, okay, and more calories. And as you get smaller, when you're dieting, you might need less food. And that's just intuitive. And that's whether you're on anabolics or not. People think that, if you take GH and you take steroids, you have to eat more. No, that's the big mistake people make. What steroids and GH enable you to do is eat the same correct amount of food, maybe even less, not lose muscle, okay, and look better. So you can actually train and diet harder without worrying about losing anything. That's what anabolics do. They don't allow you to eat more. They allow you to train harder and eat the right amount of food and get better results from it.
Let's go to our Instagram questions. Again, if you're not following us, our handle is official_RxMuscle. Let's go to Jay Risotto, good friend of the show. Dave has said many times that you grow in the off season and that when you're dieting, you cannot grow, or you may put on a little bit of muscle. Then why do so many pros ratchet up their training to the next level during those 12 to 16 weeks of prep when you need less training to hang on to muscle than you do to build muscle?
Well, I think that, it's called peaking. When you first start out, the contest diet, you're probably training more in an off-season, slower pace, maybe heavier weights, because you have a lot more nutrients around and you can build muscle more easily. As you get closer to the show and your weight drops and your strength drops, you're probably doing a little bit more volume, a little less weight, not purposely, but just because your strength has dropped and you're training at a faster pace because you don't have as much endurance to last maybe as long. You want to get those workouts done because you probably have a lot of cardio to do after that. And that's the change. Now, the pros that put a lot of muscle on while they're dieting for a show are usually the guys who kind of jerk around in the off season. They don't really have good off seasons. The guys that train 365 days a year, balls to the walls, those guys don't add muscle when they're dieting for a show. But I know guys that would coast in the off season. Kevin Levrone was a perfect example. When he would get ready for a show, he would grow into the show. But that's only because he lost so much muscle from the off season. He was just basically adding back the muscle he lost. So, you don't really gain muscle, dieting for a show. Sometimes you get lucky and you do. Usually it's earlier in your career. Also, a lot of times earlier in the career of guys that use anabolic steroids, a lot of times guys don't use a lot, and then they might decide, you know what, for this show, I'm going to up it a little bit more. I might add GH. I never used that before. And all of a sudden, they realize they put on muscle. Well, of course you put on muscle. You're using more drugs than you've ever used before. So there are instances like that. But once you get into a routine, usually the off season is when you build muscle. The pre-contest period is when you shed fat.
Let's go to Mikhail Niazowitz. And this is a question that we do get asked in different shapes and forms. You talk about how frequently you should train certain body parts. So his question is, if the muscle is not sore anymore, is it okay to retrain? For example, if I hit chest on Monday and it's not sore on Thursday, is it okay to hit, or should I give it a full week to recover more and grow?
I don't think I was ever sore, once I started getting big and got into taking anabolics and stuff like that, because when you take anabolics and GH, you recover so well, you're never sore. You might have like a workout, out of nowhere that maybe you just pushed a little hard and you might be a little sore the next day, but by and far, I very rarely got sore once I got to a certain level. So soreness doesn't mean anything. Just because you're not sore doesn't mean your body's not recovering. Usually if you're really overly sore, it's because maybe you overtrained a little bit, or you trained a muscle group that you in a weird way and with a different angle that you never did before, and it just happens to be broken down. But usually pain and inflammation, usually implies that you've almost overdone it a little bit and the muscle was overwhelmed and couldn't handle it. So just not feeling that muscle be sore is not an indication that you should go back and train it again, because that's a very easy way to overtrain. You should be well rested. You should not be ridiculously fatigued. You should not feel like your body's in a state of constant breakdown. That's not an anabolic state. That's a very catabolic state. You should actually feel like, man, I can't wait to get back to the gym to train that next body part. I can't wait till legs come up. Okay? That's what you get when you train once a week. When you train twice a week, each body part, it's like dread. Oh, I got to do legs again. That's not a good... When you feel like that, you're overtrained, okay? So once a week. I know it's hard. I know everyone wants to go and do more. I know especially when you have a weaker body part, your natural instinct is let me train it more. Do the opposite. If you have a weak body part, it's because it doesn't recover well, usually, assuming you train with good form and you're eating enough nutrition. If you are, you probably need to give it more rest. And when you do give it more rest, you're going to find it's going to grow better.
Let's go to Dad Bod Fit Incorporated. Love the name. Dave, any thoughts or advice for severe knee bursitis, specifically the bursa directly on top of the patella? I've been dealing with the pain and swelling for years, and traditional ice and rest have not helped to any extent. Thanks, and hate the show.
If you didn't say it was you were having this pain for years, I would probably say that, there's probably something we can do about it. Once it gets to I've been in pain for 5 years, you probably have some kind of an arthritis or, cartilage defect going on. Assuming you don't. Let's assume you don't. And it would be easy to go, get an X-ray or MRI done and to see if there is any damage. What I would recommend, if it seems to be like a chronic tendonitis or rubbing issue, if you don't wear orthotics already, custom orthotics, I advise you go to your chiropractor or your podiatrist, have them make you a pair of custom orthotics. They mold the bottom of your feet and they correct your arch, okay? Because if your arch is flat, which happens to a lot of us bodybuilders that weigh a lot, or you might just be born that way, the balance of all the musculature that goes up from there is imbalanced. And a lot of times that could torque your knee a little bit and you get rubbing in the knee, okay? Getting a pair of matter of fact, when my orthotics break down, I get knee pain. That's how I know I got to go get them replaced, because they should be replaced every 2 years. And sometimes you forget. But try that first, okay? Go get a pair of custom orthotics, because everyone should wear them. If you consider yourself a bodybuilder and you're big and you train hard, you better wear orthotics, because they're going to correct the biomechanics of your feet. And after all, we want perfect alignment when we're working out to make sure we use the right muscle groups. If that doesn't help, okay, I would certainly go see an orthopedic surgeon and you might want to do this anyway, and get an MRI done, get x-rays done in your knee. Let's see what's going on. Maybe you got arthritis in there. It's possible.
I don't know if you saw the recent episode. I don't know if it was the last one or a recent episode of Fouad Abiad's podcast. he had Brad Rowe. Have you seen it or heard anything about it?
No, I haven't seen it.
Okay. So we're getting.
I don't even have time to watch my own podcasts, but yeah.
We're getting a few questions regarding Brad Rowe's comments about your keto philosophies. Apparently, he had some very strong opinions. So I guess if you haven't watched it, I guess you can go ahead and watch it.
So, do you know what he said?
I'm not aware, but from what I'm gathering,
I'll have to watch it.
He's strongly disagrees. Let's just put it that way. Well, we are getting suggestions for you to get him on potentially. So, if Brad Rowe, if you're watching, it would be good to get you on maybe Guru Talk, Iron Debate, what have you. We could certainly have that discussion. Let's go to Coleman Lucas. Now, Dave, over the weekend, I remember I texted you about this. Joe Rogan did a recent podcast where he talked about his results with the carnivore diet. Yeah. So naturally, we've been getting a lot of questions about the carnivore diet, your thoughts on it. So Coleman Lucas wants to know your opinion on carnivore and performance. Is it possible to put serious muscle using the carnivore diet?
I'm so sick of these extreme diets. Any diet works if it has structure to it, okay? Obviously, I've talked about this before. Protein and fat builds muscle. We know that. We know you don't need a lot of carbohydrates to build muscle, okay? And your body actually makes its own carbohydrates out of protein. So, a carnivore diet will certainly work, and it's really a form of a ketogenic diet in a sense, if you think about it. So my problem is that I don't think that you have to eliminate vegetables, green vegetables that are low in carbs from a diet, okay, in order for it. In other words, people want to do extremes because extremes attract people. People say, holy, a carnivore, it's so extreme. Oh, and look at Joe Rogan, it worked on him. I'm going to try it. It's like no one can just look at, I've been talking about my ketogenic diet for, almost 30 years now. And I've basically been just giving the premise of the fact that protein and fat is what builds and repairs muscle. And then the carbs are just kind of a fuel source. And if you lower your carbs low enough, you'll switch your brain from using glucose as a fuel source into fat. And when you do that, you feel good during the diet. That's all. The only reason why you would go from a low carb to a no carb diet is because you feel better, because your brain's in ketosis and it has an unlimited source of energy and it's not dependent on blood glucose for fuel, which is at a limited supply when you're eating a low carb diet. So, but you can eat green vegetables. You can have spinach and you can have asparagus and you can have green beans if you account for them in your diet and still be, and make it a more balanced, healthier diet. I don't think that there needs to be an extreme where you only have to eat meat. I also like different sources of fat and different sources of protein, so every diet works. And that's why people say, oh, what about this diet that so-and-so gave me? I'm like, if there's logic behind it it's going to work, and if you have a good metabolism, it'll probably work. Any diet works if you apply it. My thing about diets is that I think people like to make extremes to the diet. Like, there's no reason to be a vegan, okay? But the merits of the vegan diet, of the healthiness of it, is certainly valid. So why not incorporate vegetables, okay, and vegetable sources, into your diet to get the health benefits of vegetables, okay, and greens, okay, and still eat red meat or still eat, animal sources of protein. It's all about balance. And once we realize that and realize that, look, you don't have to either have a huge wide tie or thin tie. You can have a tie in the middle. Then you'll be happy with life. I think people just have to always go to the extremes. Life is about balance. And if you want to have long-term success with how you look, in other words, be lean and be able to add muscle and not either be fat or skinny, then you have to find the balance in there. And there is a right way to do it. There is a scientific approach. And that's what, I've been trying to systematically teach people, every single week that we do this Ask Dave show. Just show the practicality, the logic of balance. There's a balance. And there's certain things that can be eliminated and there's certain things that shouldn't be eliminated. The carnivore diet's a great diet if you follow the premises of it. But I don't think it needs to be that extreme. That's all.
Let's go to Maddie Cat Lives. How do you know when it's time to switch your training split? How can you tell right away, or maybe not right away necessarily, but how do you tell when your body is not responding to a certain routine?
When I go to the gym and I'm like, damn it, I got to do another freaking squat workout and I got to do extensions and I want to just throw up. I have no desire to do this. That's when I say, you know what? I'm not doing the regular routine today. I'm switching it up. Okay? And unless I have, I've been making great gains every week and I'm just getting a little burnt, okay? In which case I might just take a week off and change up a few things and then go back to the old routine. But, by and far, the basic building blocks of muscle, okay? The squat, the deadlift, the bench press, the shoulder press, those are your tried and true, exercises. You might take a week off from doing them because you're a little burnt out, or maybe you're injured, or you just don't feel like you're strong that workout. But by and far, that's the bread and butter. That's you never stop those movements. However, I've gone to the gym, and instead of coming into the gym and shoulder pressing and then going to side laterals and then going to rear delts, I might come into the gym and do rear delts first, and then do front raises, and then do side laterals, and then go and do presses at the end of my workout. Will I be as strong when presses? No, but it doesn't matter because I didn't feel that strong to begin with when I went into the gym. So I switched up everything, and I basically made the workout a little more enjoyable. Or maybe there's a new machine that the gym just got in that I want to try out. Instead of my normal shoulder presses behind the neck that I used to do, maybe I'm going to try a hammer overhead press machine. Just because I didn't feel that good that one workout. So what you do is you shock your body every once in a while. Maybe you want to do drop sets. Hey, you know what? I don't want to squat 600 pounds today. I'm going to squat 400 and then do a drop set to 225 and intensify the workout that way by getting more reps and forcing my body to work harder. So I wouldn't do it every single week, but these are methodologies that you can employ to try to get past plateaus or to get out of that mental burnout stage. If you just feel exhausted and you don't feel like training at all, and you have that I just feel like I hate training. Take a week off. You take a week off from the gym, you won't be able to wait to go back to the gym and train. I guarantee it. You'll be like Jones and like a crackhead to get back into the gym. Sometimes that's what you need. Your body is saying rest, okay? But by and far, the basic bodybuilding movements don't stop working, okay? Your brain or your body stops working because it could be overtrained, or it's not being fed enough, or it's not being given enough rest.
We always get questions about some of the drama in bodybuilding. We're getting questions about Greg Doucette and Brandon Harding, and then we're getting requests to get Greg. Greg Doucette is always welcome on our channel. We always get requests to have him on Guru Talk, so Philip Rowe wants to have him on so you guys can discuss your different views on bulking and training frequency. Somebody else asked your opinion on Colin von Moger. We can address those topics in a different forum.
What's Greg's problem with Colin von Moger?
Wait, what? Oh, no. Those two have nothing to do with each other.
Okay.
Yeah. If you have not, if you don't know what, I guess, the whole Colin von Moger story is right now.
That's the Kenny KO story, right?
That's the Kenny KO story.
What did Kenny say about Colin?
I mean, not to get too deep into it, but he had somebody on his channel, an interview, and I guess he's been working on this story for some time. He even got a paternity test. So apparently, Colin von Moger had a child with this girl that I guess went on Kenny KO's channel it was a big expose piece. I mean, that's essentially, what, look, Lee Priest, kind of joked about him being the investigative reporter of the bodybuilding.
Yeah, I don't know why Kenny KO finds it necessary to out Colin von Moger's paternity, situation. I don't know what that has to do with bodybuilding, but I guess.
But nonetheless, obviously, look, he's a big name, and if you get a juicy nugget like that, it's going to be discussed. But nonetheless, as far as Greg Doucette, Brandon Harding, I mean, again, Dave, I don't know if you have an opinion or if you want to get Greg Doucette on. You can
we get him on. You'll reach out to him after. We'll get him on next week.
For sure. Absolutely.
Right.
IFBB Tenacity. Dave, can you provide some ideas on forearm development? We've gotten this one in different ways, but in terms of gaining size for your forearms.
Yeah, it's very important that you train your forearms, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when you're lifting heavy weights, whether you be bench pressing or curling, what happens is if you don't work your forearms, the wrists become very weak because the forearms support the wrist. I did that. I made that mistake. I was very big. I was over 300 pounds. I was bench pressing 405, on the incline for reps. And when it was happening, my wrists were killing me. I couldn't figure out what the hell happened. I would also, when I would pull the dumbbells off the ground to, get them up here and do incline presses with them, I was pulling forearm muscles, like almost like tearing stuff in my forearms. I couldn't figure out why. It was because I had stopped training my forearms. I figured out my forearms are big enough. They're getting so much indirect work. What do I need to train them for? And you know what? I was week after week after week, I was having problems with my wrist and my forearms. And I said, I'm going to start training my forearms. And believe me, it hurt at first because they were sore from pulling them. And I started doing my reverse wrist curls and then my wrist curls again. And I actually like to do them with a cable. I actually grab a cable and I'll usually put my one hand on here and I'll do them this way, and then I'll do them this way with my thumbs hooked around this way. And I'll tell you, just from doing 2 sets a week of wrist curls and reverse wrist curls, all my problems went away. My wrist pain went away, and I stopped pulling my forearm muscle when I would pull these dumbbells off the floor. It was like within 2 weeks. It was unbelievable. And it just goes to show you, you cannot leave that chain, any chain in your body, any muscular chain, you cannot leave a weak link in it. And that goes for abs too. I know a lot of guys who don't train their abs. They think, I'm going to build my midsection is going to get thicker. They don't train their abs and then they start pulling their lower back. Well, guess what? The abs work antagonistic to the lower back muscles and stabilize the core. You can't do that. You have to train the whole chain. And that goes for neck too. I used to pull if I didn't train my neck, do that neck machine. Weinberg has a great neck machine, the old Nautilus one. Every time I would do shoulder presses or shrugs, because I was lift so heavy, I would pull something through my neck and I couldn't turn my head to the side. And as soon as I started doing neck again, problem went away. So don't neglect those small accessory muscles that support the chain, as I call it, the muscular chain.
We're going to try to squeeze as many questions as we can. Right now, we have a lot of really good ones. So just a reminder before I ask this question, because it is fairly relevant. We did an episode of Guru Talk yesterday with Matt Jansen on last month prep. Really, really informative talk between Dave and Matt Jansen. And as we head into the Arnold Classic, we're going to try to do more of those, prep-related Guru Talk topics. Stuff where you could really dive into the deep science behind bodybuilding. Let's go to...
You know what, Sid? I got to just say something on this. Everyone's always asking me questions. I get 1 million people emailing me on a daily basis, and I answer pretty much every question, unless it's a very long, involved question that they're asking. And, I go on YouTube and I look at the different channels, and I see, even on our own channel, I could do a story about, Big Rammy farted in the gym, and 3 girls passed out in the corner, and that video will get 1 million hits. And I'll do a show with Matt Jansen, who's, training some of the top guys in the industry, and we're talking shop and how to prepare for shows and a lot of science. And it gets a lot of hits, but it doesn't get anywhere near the Rammy farted the story does. I don't get it. You guys want information. Watch these videos. Educate yourself. Watch them while you're on the toilet. Whatever you got to do. Or just listen to them. You don't even have to even watch them. Just listen to us talking about these topics. Telling you, they will give you ideas. They help train your brain so that when you're doing this stuff, you don't make silly mistakes. This is the videos these are the videos should be getting 1 million hits, not Big Rammy farting. It's just I don't get it, But people love gossip. That's what the problem is, Sid.
So no, we cannot confirm whether or not Big Rammy actually did fart, but I'm sure he has. But people.
No one was injured in the making of this video.
It's either Ojelanico or Ojelanico. How did Dave, during your career, achieve that skinless conditioning on stage?
Part of it's genetic, because I was always very vascular, even as a kid. Okay, but a lot of it was just hard work. No one dieted harder than I did. The funny thing is I'm one of these guys that gets lean really easy, and yet I diet harder than everyone, or not everyone, but I dieted about as hard as you can diet. I did my cardio. I suffered on low carbs. I suffered, and to the point where the last 2 weeks before a show, I couldn't sleep at night. Just laying there in bed was uncomfortable because I had no fat on my body anywhere. And when you have no fat under the skin, those nerve endings that are right there just laying on a sheet, on a cover or a blanket that's too rough is uncomfortable. That's how bad I was. I couldn't fall asleep. I wish I would have known about like Xanax back then, because it probably would have helped. But it was very hard for me to stay asleep at night. And I would get up and I would eat every 2 hours. I was drinking like Metrex shakes in the middle of the night. Luckily, I was lean enough to be able to do that. But because I was so hungry all the time because I suffered that much. If you want to look, okay, shredded like Andreas Munzer or Dave Palumbo or whoever else you think, Dorian Yates, whoever gets crazy shredded, you got to be willing to go to that pain zone that we went to and suffer through it. A lot of people just don't want to do it. I'm hungry. I get people constantly complaining, I'm hungry. I think I need more food. No, you don't need more food. You only lost 1 pound last week. Okay, the whole 7 days, you lost 1 pound. How could you need more food? If you lost 15 pounds, I'd agree with you. I'd say, you know what? Yeah, I'm not feeding you enough. You lost 1 pound. Or I have people who come to me, girls who come to me, they're like, I need more food. They gained 1 pound. I'm like, you gained 1 pound last week. You're on a contest diet. You don't need more food. How are you going to get in shape if you're not suffering and you're not losing weight? So you got to be willing to suffer, and that's all there is to it. Now, obviously, there's the right type of suffering, the wrong type of suffering, but if you're not losing excessive weight every week, then you're not under eating, and that's just the way it goes. If you want to look like the champions do, peel to the bone, crazy striated glutes, you have to be willing to suffer and be hungry.
Time for 2, maybe 3 more questions. Trying to find this one. It was talk about blood work and let me just. It's a really good. Okay, yeah, here we go. Flex Luthor, love the name by the way. If you can't afford to get blood work done, say from a private clinic, obviously we recommend Titan Medical. What's the best route to get it done from a public clinic or a hospital? What would you recommend?
I mean, if you have Medicaid, I guess you can go anywhere and get it done, and you're not going to pay for it. But if you don't have that, I know Life Extension. You can go to the website. They have like some cheaper ways to get certain blood, basic metabolic panels done. You're not going to get anything elaborate or hormone panels, for cheap. But they have really reasonably priced ways you can go about getting, your basic metabolic panel done, which gives you kidney function and, your all your basic blood chemistry and electrolytes and stuff like that, liver function. That's my suggestion, if you can't afford it. I really highly recommend that everyone gets health insurance, if you can do it, even if you have to pay for it, because you never know. As a bodybuilder, you should be checking your blood work. And if you can't, go to Titan Medical. Titan Medical has great sales. We advertise them all the time. I think it was under $200 for a super comprehensive blood panel with everything, including hormones. I mean, if you spend that once a year, it's not a big deal, Save up your pennies. Stop spending $2 on a cup or $3 on a cup of whatever it is. What is Starbucks charging, for coffee these days? $4?
I go to McDonald's.
Oh, you're a cheapo too. You're smart. Starbucks, you can spend $4. I know people go to Starbucks spend $4 a day on coffee, and then they cry to me and they can't afford to buy a whey protein or a multivitamin. I'm like, stop spending $4 a day on coffee. Make your own coffee at home with a little Keurig. Cost you 20 cents. So I would recommend that everyone at least get their blood work done once a year. And if, like I said, if you don't have health insurance, go to Titan Medical. You're going to get a great deal for their blood work. Tell them Dave Palumbo, RxMuscle sent you. They'll give you a special discount. It's worth it. Trust me. You got to know your data. You got to know what's going on in your body.
SDE Temple, fast-acting insulin used with post-workout meals. Should I avoid fats with a meal following this, or is it okay to add back in by then 2.5 hours later?
With the insulin and the fats, oh my God. I blame myself for this. I really do, because 25 years ago I said don't eat carbs and fat when you're taking insulin. 25 years ago, the only thing I probably said wrong in the history of giving information, and I blame myself. But I think people took that and just ran with it. You could eat fat with carbs when taking insulin. Insulin stores carbs as glycogen in the muscle. When the muscles are filled up and the liver is filled up, it'll put the carbs into the fat cells. Insulin doesn't do anything to fat. Okay, insulin does not store fat as fat. So there's no problem. Okay, I carb people up on fat, protein, and carbs. The fat is not getting stored as fat if you take insulin with it. I promise you.
We'll keep it a one more question. I know we're going way over the time. Obviously, we had a death earlier this week, Dave. Scott Millen, Canadian IFBB bodybuilder, I believe died at the age of 46, and I believe you reported that he had a heart attack.
It was
The
actually a
natural guy-
hemorrhagic stroke, I heard, caused by
The
an
natural-
infection.
Yeah, the natural guy is asking a question that I think a lot of people are starting to wonder. They're commenting on our YouTube in the comments on the video. Obviously, they've commented, on other previous deaths as well. Should we all be more concerned about bodybuilders dying too young? Too many die young. Is it worth the risk?
There are guys that climb Mount Everest that drop dead, fall off the mountain, okay? There's people that skydive that the parachutes don't open up. There's people that play NFL football that get, concussions and brain damage. There's boxers that box that get killed in the ring, okay? It comes with the territory. When you do something at an elite level in excess, it becomes unhealthy at a certain point. It's minimizing the health risks, okay? And then at some point realizing, okay, I can't do this the rest of my life. I have to cut back. Now, I don't know why Scott died or what caused the hemorrhagic stroke. I heard it was from an infection, but, he was a big guy. I think at some point you have to think in your head, all right, you know what? It was great when I was in my 20s and 30s. I was a big, huge guy and bodybuilder. I competed. I made money. I lived my passion and dream. Now I'm in my mid to late 40s. I got to start cutting back a little bit. I got to cut my weight back. John Romano and I talked about this on After Hours Radio podcast this past week. At some point, you have to tone it back and start thinking about health markers and how much you weigh and get a game plan for the second half of your life. And I think a lot of people don't do that. I saw that with Greg Kovacs, unfortunately. Unfortunately, he had heart surgery that he a day or two later died after. But the big guys seem to not last as long, okay? And it has to be because there's more of a strain on your body. Even if you don't have a direct heart attack or you don't have, something else go wrong with you, you're more likely to have problems if you're heavier because your blood pressure will be higher, your blood sugars tend to run higher when you weigh more, and it's just more of a strain on your body systems. And as we get older, the body just can't handle it as much as it could when you were younger. So, the take-home message here is that, Scott was a great guy. We all liked him. He was passionate about bodybuilding. He gave a lot back to the sport. I wish he would have maybe toned it back a little bit. Obviously, if he had an infection that was not of his doing and it just was bad luck, you know what? That's a terrible thing because we lost a really good person too young. But it might just be a message. Like when we see the Dallas McCarvers, could that have happened to anyone? Absolutely. Was it caused by bodybuilding? Probably not. The guy had a bad case of genetics. He had a 90% blockage in his coronary artery at 26 years old. I mean, that doesn't happen to anyone. It happens to 1 in a million, Unfortunately, all we can do, and I've said this before, is take personal charge of your health. That means you go and get your blood work done. You go and get your heart checked out. Okay, you make sure your blood pressure is good during the, on a regular basis. You buy a blood pressure cuff and you check your blood sugars on a regular basis. Something that's very easy also because you can go buy a blood sugar monitor now for $9 in Walmart. So you have to take your health into your own hands. You take your muscle building into your own hands. Take your health into your own hands to make sure that you're healthy because it's not mutually exclusive. You could be healthy while you're bodybuilding, okay? But you need to listen, okay, when your body is telling you that something's not right. And I think a lot of people like to want to just stick their head in the sand and not deal with it. So, once again, every time we have a death in our industry, I always say the same thing. If this little wake-up call helps one person, then the death was not in vain, okay? So, take account and take personal responsibility for your health, and I guarantee you will live a long and healthy life.
And on that note, that's going to do for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, starting next week, we're going to go full throttle with our 2020 Road to the Arnold Classic. The interviews, Iron Debate segments, preview segments, analysis segments, progress pick breakdowns, anything and everything having to do with the Arnold Classic. We will have it starting next week on RxMuscle.com. For Dave Palumbo and our producer, Tyler Shore, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.